Robert Kennedy Jr. could be confirmed as Trump's head of the Health and Human Services as early as next week. The Senate Finance Committee voted Tuesday to move forward with the nomination by a narrow vote of 14-13.
There had been some speculation whether GOP Senator Dr. Bill Cassidy would vote against advancing Kennedy's nomination, but he did end up voting with his Republican colleagues. The committee also approved Tulsi Gabbard's nomination as the next director of national intelligence. That nomination also now goes to the Senate floor.